Even if we get started just a little bit early, it's all good.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're going to talk about wholesaling the most. Is that pretty much
Yeah.
what you're doing, Eric? Just
Even
wholesaling?
if we okay, we're good to go, guys. We're live. So if you want to go ahead and get started, David, we'll get going. And as people start watching, I can let people in.
All right. Hey, small market operators. Welcome back to Small Market Sessions. Today we got a really special guest. He is a serial entrepreneur and a real estate investor. So, as always, this is not legal or financial advice. Always consult a professional. So, without further ado, I present you Eric Williams, and go ahead and kind of give us your story, man.
Hey, everybody. My name is Eric Williams. Glad to be here, first of all. Yeah, so real estate has been a passion of mine over the years. Just didn't know how to get started. You always hear people talk about like, I got like 10 rentals I got to deal with, or, I got this big, fix and flip project coming along. And so I didn't know where to get started. And I think I got started about around, was about 2019 during the COVID era. That was way before COVID was the thing it became.
Right.
um, but I had to make a switch and a pivot just because at that time I was a travel agent. And going into 2020, I said, you know what? 2020 is going to be the best year for my business. I'm just going to double down with my travel agency and really just drive it. And then COVID happened. you know, a lot of the itineraries stopped. They just closed down everything. So I was like, okay, well, I still had a full-time job, no big deal. I can still roll. And then work slowed down at work. And then next thing you know, I'm unemployed because the owner of that company actually sold it because they were just doing so bad and he couldn't stop the bleeding. So um I was like, at rock, but I wouldn't say rock bottom, but just starting all over, with the business, trying to figure things out. I was dabbling a little bit in real estate. So I was, doing driving for dollars, bandit signs, doing cold calling, just the whole nine of just getting started. And then all of a sudden, like my market here in Tennessee, things was just going fast and extremely high. And so I don't know if you guys witnessed it in your market, but we had a lot of the iBuyers come in, and so they were buying houses. I mean houses that were worth 150, they were going 250, $300,000. Like it was just it was just pandemonium. So at that time, I was like, you know what, maybe it's a bad time to get into real estate. I just kind of took a step back. But also at that time, I figured out that I could be what's called a notary signing agent. And so anytime someone purchases a home, refinance a home, or get a line of credit or a HELOC, there's certain documents within that package that needs to be notarized. And so, I had to get my notary commission, and then I had to do it's like a loan officer training just to, guide people through the documents and everything. So I got started in that about mid 2020 going into 21, and everything was going good. Everything was just fantastic. Interest rates, they were like, 3, 4%. The lowest interest rate I saw was probably, I think it was like 1.9%, so everybody was happy, everybody was purchasing, and then interest rates went up. And so with that line of business, when interest rates go up, purchases slow down, refinances slow down. And so I had to fall back on some of the notary work. And with the notary work, I can only charge so much. So it's like $10, $15 for a stamp, So ending the day making just about, $45 didn't sit well with me, and it just trying to draw up business. Um, but I held on for a little bit, really living hand to mouth. And I never forget, I went out to this couple's home. They were refinancing their property. And we're doing the paperwork. And as we're doing the paperwork, the guy's wife is like packing these suitcases, getting ready to leave. And I said, "Oh, you guys going on a trip?" He's like, "Yeah, yeah, we're going to go to Mexico for a month." And I'm like, "Okay, time out. Tell me what you do. Are you hiring? And can I start today?" So I asked him, I said, "Well, what is it you do?" And he goes, "Oh, I'm a real estate investor." And the light bulb turned back on, you know. And I said, I got into it a little bit, kind of jumped out because the market is crazy. And, I didn't want to, get in there and mess things up. So he looked at me and he said, which I've heard several times. He said, "You ever hear, I think it's like this Chinese proverb or African proverb, one of the two, it says, the best time to plant a tree was like 10 years ago. And the best time to plant a tree is today." And so he said, "My advice to you is to get into it and don't get out of it because it can make a huge change in your life." And so he kind of told me like his life story, and it kind of lined up with what I was going through and what I was doing. And I said, "You know what? I'm gonna jump back into real estate." So kind of got back into the education field, still because I was living like, hand to mouth, trying to keep, the bills paid without trying to pay extra money for different services and different products. I was really, going back and forth, but I didn't really take it serious till about June or July of last year. I said, "You know what? We're going to really buckle down into this and we're just going to do it. We're just going to run hardcore. We're going to make sure every day that comes by, we're doing something real estate related." My mentor told me, he said that, there's two types of work. There's productive work and there's busy work. You know, Productive work is getting on the phone, talking to sellers, putting offers in. Busy work is, what color should my business cards be? What shall I name my LLC? Do I have the right SRM to do this? Different things where it makes you feel like you're busy, but at the end of the day, you're not doing the business. And so that was my first step, was just, getting on the phone and, talking to sellers. But the biggest thing about talking to sellers is like, you can have a good conversation. And this is just from my experience. You can have a good conversation, but then you got to get to that point where you got to talk about price, And so getting to that point, talking about price, I call it the Mickey Mouse voice because, you're like, "Yeah, so Bob, so I think well, we could probably do 40,000. Is that good? No? Okay, bye-bye. Because it's nerve-wracking, just making that transition from, being a notary to making offers on properties. So I noticed that was a weak point of mine. So I decided to do 5 offers a day. And all I did was just to get the practice and just get the marbles out of my mouth. I would call listed properties. If I drove past a neighborhood and there was a realtor sign, I would pull over, type the number on my phone, give them a call, and I'll say, "Hey, my name is Eric. I'm a real estate investor, just looking at this property here. What it is listed at?" And they'll say, "Oh, we're listed at 200,000." And I immediately just go half minus 10,000, And so I say, "Oh, well, would they consider a cash offer of, you know, 140?" And so we know the answer, especially if it's a brand new home. But it was just to get that practice in, to get that repetition in. And so that's kind of like how I got started, just really getting that productive aspect of real estate down. It's just making those calls, throwing those offers in. Actually, it was funny, I had a couple of bites, to come back, but that's really just kind of the nutshell of just getting started into the real estate atmosphere.
That's good stuff, man. I appreciate you sharing that with us and sharing your beginnings and your story. And you're right. It's about, I said all the time, it's sets and reps. It's chopping wood and carrying water. I mean, that's how
Yeah,
you get better at this business. Is you just got to do it. You got to make those offers, and you got to get hung up on, and you got to get all those things. They can't
yeah,
eat you. So at the end of the day, so yeah,
exactly,
yeah, we just
exactly.
we
And
just
so
keep
like
working.
And you know what's the funny thing? I used to do performance arts, and I remembered the first time we went out on stage. We was doing a big performance. There was a lot of people. And I was nervous, and so the guy on stage, he looked at me. He said, "Dude, calm down. These people don't know who you are. So if you mess up, they'll never know. So like, go out there like you're the big cheese." And so like in the beginning, like when I was cold calling, I would get nervous because I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy's gonna know that my name is Eric Williams, and I was just door dashing 4 hours this morning because I needed the money to pay for bills, and I'm about to make an offer on this price. Like, and so like when I had that mentality on me, it was like hard to get the calls. Like sometimes I'll just sit there looking at the number for about 10, 15 minutes, and I'm just like, I can't do it today. I'll do it tomorrow. Tomorrow, I promise. But then I realized, so well, wait a minute, these people don't know me. I don't know them. Like I could be sitting with like $2 million in my bank account, ready to pull the trigger on something. So I had to like do a little bit of a mentality shift because that saying like fake it till you make it, like in the beginning, there's a little bit of that. Like there's a little bit of that when you get started. Because I mean, you could be like a mechanic fixing on cars and you're getting into real estate investing.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's a fear, and I've always told my kids fear is a liar. So, when we used to cold call, it was just, when I started in the brokerage business, we were cold callers, and we would cold call from a phone book, and the people, well, most will say, "What's a phone book?" But that's how we would do it. We would start in the A's, and we would work our way through, and we would call a
Hmm.
phone book back in the day. So, and knocking on doors um, is another thing. That's to me, that's two of the most difficult things to do in sales is cold call and knock on doors.
Yes.
And
Yes.
people that can master that and get over the fear of that, they can do anything. I mean, sky's the
Exactly.
limit. I mean, if you can get over that, you can do anything with your life. You can do any business, make any amount of money that you choose to do. If you
Hmm.
do that. But
Everything is on the other side of that uncomfortable conversation, guys.
Exactly. Exactly. One of
yeah,
my favorite quotes says, "You don't have to be great to get started, but you got to get started to be great." So it's the same thing, same philosophy. I might not be great cold calling right now, but if I keep at it, I'm gonna be phenomenal at it. 5, 10, 20 months from now. But you just got to keep doing it. Every day.
I always try to when I get, my wife always jokes about it, but the first thing I do is I try to make the uncomfortable phone calls early in the morning. I do those first thing. If it's a problem with a tenant or I'm evicting somebody or talking to an attorney or doing, just the stuff that you really just would rather do anything other than that. I always try to do that first thing, get it
Hmm.
out of the way, you know, that way I don't procrastinate on it.
Exactly. It's like eating your broccoli first.
Yeah, right. Kind of makes the day a little better when you do it that way.
Exactly.
Yeah. But go ahead, Travis. I know you got some questions. So.
No, for sure. No, are you still so I know, since, pretty much last summer you've been focused in, you've been honing in.
Mhm.
So what does business look like now for you? Are you still cold calling like today? Did you do 5 offers today like when you started back into it?
Yes, sir. Yes, it's just a habit now. It's like best way I can explain it is like it's like building blocks. So you start off with just making 5 offers a day, and then you say, okay, well, if I'm doing this, the next step would be like actually deep diving, more fixer uppers. They might be on Zillow, Redfin, whatever. Um, Start making offers on those, and then my my strategy behind that is not to get the deal, but to get the relationship with the realtor. And I think that's the most phenomenal thing because when you have a relationship with a realtor, the conversations are going to be totally different than picking up the phone and cold calling a realtor. Like my friend, my friend Jennifer, she's a realtor out in Middle Tennessee. We've been friends for the last 2 years because I've always nourished that relationship. Like, hey, how's your kid's soccer practice? Did you guys move out to Arizona? How was the trip? That aspect of real estate, and just business in general doesn't get talked about a lot because this is definitely a relationship building industry. And so if you don't know how to build a good relationship, and you're just going in, just desperate to get a deal, I gotta get this deal. People are going to pick up that. People are going to pick up on you not being genuine. People are going to pick up on you not caring. I can't tell you how many times I have had people call me back. Like I need to develop a KPI for like for the callbacks I get because I'll talk to someone like one of the guys. I've got him under contract today. Talked to him about August of last year. And he was just telling me like his whole life story, and I'm just listening. And so I said, well, if this is our offer, this is where I'm at. He's like, yeah, you know what? I can't do that. He's like, I don't want to waste your time, blah, blah, blah. But thank you. I said, hey, no problem. So I remembered in the story, he was telling me about around September or so, he was having a birthday. So I was like, you know what? I just shoot him a little message. I was like, hey Steve, this is Eric. Talked to you last month. I remember today's your birthday. Happy birthday. Enjoy your time with your family, etc., etc. Didn't hear anything. And then about a week ago, he called me. He said, hey, is this Eric? And I said, yes, it is. And I didn't save his number, so I'm like kind of confused. And so he goes, hey, this is Steve. We talked back in August, and like I'm going through the Rolodex of my mind. I'm like, let me think, let me think. So I have my Bluetooth headphones in, so I go through the messages, and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember this guy. And so he said, hey, things has changed. Is that offer still available? I said, well, you know what? I don't want to lie to you. I would say yes, but since there's been some time, let me just do some deep diving and see where we're at. And that just transpired from just being genuine, just being myself. When you get on the phone, like you can have all these scripts, you can have all these prompts, but at the end of the day, like if you don't know how to like interject your personality into what you're reading or what you're saying, people are going to, I mean, they're going to pick up on that. It's just like when you go to like a car dealership, as soon as you walk out, the first guy's like, hey, how you doing? What you looking for? How can I help you today? What can I put you in today? That guy, like he's going from a script, but when the other guy comes and he makes you feel relaxed and he's talking to you and asking you questions, like you feel a sense of caring. And so that's like the biggest aspect to real estate because you have to care because unfortunately, like properties are people's biggest asset. So like I don't even look at it as when I talk to someone, I was like, I'm like, well, tell me the condition of your property. That doesn't sound personal. Like I would say, hey, tell me about your home. What's something you love about it? Oh man, they had this great bay windows. The windows need to be replaced. You know what? Yeah, I would replace the windows if I could. Okay. So like if you had an unlimited budget, like what are some of the repairs you would do? Oh man, I would do the roof. And so as he's talking, like I'm writing this stuff down, I'm putting this stuff in the notes because like it's a different conversation to have versus so, Travis, Mr. Goodwin, tell me about the conditions of your property. Now, is it livable? Yes, yes, okay, okay. And have you replaced the roof in the last 6 to 7 years? It doesn't sound right. So building that relationship is really just a key factor. Like with anybody you're dealing with, from general contractors to realtors to attorneys to, I mean, if anybody got their hands in real estate, build a relationship with them. Like that, I mean, that's the biggest thing. One of my cash buyers, I probably talk about him a lot. Like, I mean, he'll text me something silly. Like he texted me something silly this morning and I'll set something back to them. But we have that relationship where we're just like, hey, I'm looking at this. Where can we park this? Kind of a little bit of a reverse engineering thing.
That's good stuff, man. That's really good. I like that a lot. I think that it's a little bit of I didn't make this term, but what they call emotional selling versus
Hmm.
intellectual selling is the whole features, benefits, the bonuses of what I can do for you, and then the emotional selling is, well, what does this mean to you? Let's get emotional about this transaction and figure out the real needs, the greeds in the situation. Right. That's why when
Mhm.
I first talked to you, like, see, which you're really good at this, and it's making people remember you. Like, you got to leave people with something to remember you by, because some people
Mhm.
might not remember Coach's name, Saeed's name, Eric's name, but they're going to remember how you made them feel overall. So I like that. So
Thank
how
you.
did
Thank you.
and I like how you were so just like, oh yeah, I got a contract today, like it was nothing too. Like that congratulations. How did you get that deal? Like how did you get this contract?
Yeah, so he was part of an old cold calling campaign. One of I think it was Jim Rohn that said, "Fortune is in the follow-up." And so I still follow up with leads from about 6, 7 months ago. I'll call them, then I'll slot them out like a few months, and then I'll just touch base with them again. But when he called me, I was kind of like I was in a panic because I was like, oh, this doesn't. No one told me on YouTube this is supposed to happen. What do I do next? And so I'm like, okay, let's remember the process. So I, ran my numbers, called them back, and I said, hey, listen, there's been some changes in the market. So where we were at previously, this is where we're at now. And this is our offer. Tell me what you think. And he was like, well, can't really go down that low. Let me think about it. I said, well, I'll tell you what, let's just have a conversation. Matter of fact, is there anybody else that needs to be on this call so we can, move forward? And he said, no, I own everything free and clear. I said, okay, perfect. How close can you get to that number? You know, and he said, well, I can be right around, this number. And so I'm already looking at my numbers. And then I'll talk about how I look at my numbers as well, differently than just a wholesale deal. So I'm already looking at my numbers. So I'm already slotting how this is going to go, like how I'm going to write up this contract. And so I said, well, I'll tell you what, I can't meet you at just kind of quick numbers. He countered back at like, let's say 50. I really needed to be right around 45. But the max I had to be at was about like 60. So I said, I'll tell you what, I said, could you do 49.50? If we're there, would that work for you? And he said, well, let me think about it. I said, sure, take the time you need to think about it. In the meantime, I'm going to continue to run some numbers, but also see what else we can qualify you for. And that's a big thing to say, just because I know we're talking about like wholesaling, but when you look at it as an investor, you have to look at it more than just a wholesale deal, because not every deal is going to be just a wholesale deal. It might be, a novations or a subject to or a seller finance with terms. It just depends on what works for that situation. So, he's like, let me think about it. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna give him like 3 days and I'm gonna follow up with him. Called me back in an hour and a half and he said, I tell you what, if you send over the contract, we can get going tonight. And I said, perfect, So I sent him the contract about 8:30 last night. And then I woke up this morning, first thing, it said, I got the notification. It said, Steve signed the contract. So I get on the phone, I call my cash buyer. I say, hey, green flag, let's go. Send the GC out there. Let's do it. And so we're just rocking and rolling, going through our inspection period right now. And so but that's how I got it. It was just that initial just conversation. Um, and I have a lot of people that are just like that. I got a lady I'm following up later on today. She's in, a home. She doesn't know if she wants to sell or anything, but I'm just like, hey, talk to me. you know, talk to me. Like at this point, you're not a dollar sign to me. You're a person. What's going through? Like, what's your plan? Like, how can I assist you? Because this is a problem solving thing. So you got to be good at solving problems.
Very good. That's all this business is problem after problem, it seems like. But it's all good, it's all good. We sign up for it. No, I love the follow up, man. I'm huge on follow up is my game, and people ask me all the time, like they'll send me a lead, and I'll call the lead, and nothing comes from it right now. They're like, "Well, what's going on?" I'm like, "Well, it's just the process is just starting. It's going to be a
Yeah,
little while now because now we have to nurture this person because they'll have the first initial conversation, and maybe they're in a good mood right now, and they're willing to talk with you, but maybe they get off the phone, something happens. The next time you call, they're like, well, I changed my mind. That's very common. I
exactly.
changed my mind. I don't want to do this now. I got to wait. I talked to my wife or my husband and so on. And then now you got to put them in that pipeline. Are you doing any follow-up sequences or like automation? Are you doing everything like just straight you or maybe like a
Just
VA?
no, no, just straight me. Yeah, just,
Okay.
just straight me. I did have yeah, I was using a cold calling team, but I ended up switching my marketing channels to PPL actually. And so I'm using the follow-ups from the old leads and the new leads from PPL while also making offers on market with on market deals as well. So I'm like burning the candle at all three ends, but it's like a process, you know. I kind of section off my time, you know, like first thing in the morning, you know, first things first, let's call the new leads. Maybe I had a lead that came in, you know, late last night. Maybe I had a lead that just came in 5 minutes ago. I'll call all my fresh leads for the day, leave my voicemails, send my text messages, and then I said, okay, well, this is about around 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock. I'm going to do my follow up game for the next couple of hours. And then about around 2:30, 3 o'clock, that's where I start putting my offers in on anything that's on market. Just because I've learned that for some reason, I guess around the whole nation, when 12 o'clock hits, like every realtor goes to lunch. I don't know. It's just hard. That 12 o'clock to 1 o'clock hour is so hard to get them. And then like that last little crunch window from about like 4:15 to 5 o'clock, they just disappear. They just disappear. So I have a short window to work in every once in a while. And my favorite realtors are the ones you can talk to anytime. Like those are my favorite ones to build the relationship with because those are the ones that you can spend that extra time in getting a deal done, working out terms, you know, getting more information that you need about the property you're looking at. So I love people that don't have set hours because I don't have set hours. You know, like I said, I was up to like I was 8:30 last night. I'm like, you know, typing out a contract, you know. Most people are like 5 o'clock, I'm done. You know, it doesn't work that way. Not for me, at least, not for me. But yeah, so it's just me. I used to have a cold calling team. I switched to a cold calling agency about earlier this year, and I was like, you know what? I'm not really liking the results I'm getting from this agency. So I switched over to PPL, and then the cold caller that I was using before, I reached out to him, and I'm gonna start putting him through some different training that way, he's more tailored to how I operate my business. That way, we have like a one band, big band, one sound kind of thing. You know, or as I remember, and I learned this when I was in Amway, but there was an acronym LTD, learnable, teachable, duplicatable. You know, so I want to get him kind of trained on some of our processes. So when he's on the phone talking to people, you know, he has the same process, just like just like I do. You know, just the same way. So that's yeah. So it's just me. Short answer, just me.
No, that's cool, man. So, all right, so you're going to do some training. I think that that's your team's definitely important to everybody, and it's important that we do that training if we're going to have a team, right? Because without that
Hmm.
training, they're only as good as how you're going to train them. So I understand. David, do you have anything you want to? Have you been over there? What's going on over there with you?
Well, I'm just, talking about the follow up and being around the business for quite some time. I call it life event marketing. Okay. Because, and that's what the follow up is. If you're out there and you're not doing follow up, you're out of the business. period. Because if you've been in this business for any amount of time, people will go from cold, lukewarm, and then they turn red hot. And it may be in 6 months, 8 months, 10 months, year and a half. And you're just like, they couldn't have been more aloof 2 months ago. And
Hmm.
now they are red hot. And so what happens is, and I think it's my own coin, my own term is I just call it life event marketing. Something happened in their life to cause them to go from lukewarm to red hot. A death in the family, a sickness of them, their brother, sister, wife, something happened. Uh, Taxes. We get a lot of calls right now for real estate taxes, people behind, a lot of different things. So something like that. So there's nothing more important in this business if you're going to stay in it is have good systems and be following up, following up, following up. I mean, we buy inherited houses sometimes 18 months, 2 years or more down the road. And
Hmm.
when they call, they are red hot. And we'll go back and look and say, well, we've been following up. We talked to them 2 years ago.
We
So,
we literally have a sequence right now, a follow-up sequence. It's automated, and I'll share it with you, Eric, if you want it. And anybody else who wants it, just message me about it. I won't be stingy. I took a lot of time to make this, and it's over 2 years of follow-ups, of emails, of text
Hmm.
messaging, and in between that, I'm doing some phone calls. I'm sending some direct mail pieces. We're making sure again. We're giving them a reason to remember us. Back to what we were talking about earlier. So when that life
Exactly.
event happens, they think about us. We're not out of sight and out of mind.
lots of times
Yeah.
when those life events happen, if you're not in front of them, the first thing they do is go straight to Google. Boom, do a search, find somebody, and somebody buys the house, and you talked to them a year and a half ago, and if you've been in this business, we've all had that happen. So, sorry, go ahead, Eric.
No, I was just going to say that that's just the what is it? Top of the mind marketing. You want to make sure you're always on that person's mind, and just what you said just then, Coach. You're absolutely right. Um, people will talk to not only me but several different other investors about like a cash offer, and then they'll turn around and they'll go to Google, and they might Google like need to sell my house fast. And so like when I get on the phone with people, I'm realizing like I'm not the first investor they talk to. And I'll tell them that. I'll say, listen, I'm not the first guy, probably won't be the last, but if we come to terms today, I could be the last, but tell me about your situation. You have to ask questions because the way I think about it is like if I'm the homeowner, right, and I'm getting 50 calls a day, I know for a fact, I know what everybody is asking this homeowner. They're asking the condition of the property, how soon they want to move, and what's their motivation. And I want like, and then everybody that's new, like listening, I want you to like kind of think about this for a second. Like, imagine you pick up the phone and someone says, "Hey, my name is Chuck. Saw you have a house on 123 Apple Street. Heard you were looking to sell it. Are you looking to sell it? Okay, great. When is your time frame? What is the condition? Um, how about this? What is your motivation of selling?" You know what the answer to that question, and this is one of the reasons why I didn't like the agency that I was using. The answer we're gonna get is, well, I'm just looking to sell. Well, there's more to that, right? So when you get on the phone and you're talking to these people, you want to be able to ask the questions without asking that question directly because they're already got a guard up. They probably just got off the phone with, Chuck buy houses and then Barbara buy houses. So you want to ask that question in a different way. So I'm like, hey, coach, how you doing today? My name is Eric Williams. Did I catch you at a good time? I'm already disarming you because I'm not trying to just go into what I need to say next. I'm trying to get you to engage. So as we're talking, you're going to tell me that like, you're looking to move because you want to be closer to your son. But the more we're talking, I'm realizing that the only reason why you're moving because you want to be closer to your son is because you have some health issues. But you don't want to, you're not going to tell a stranger I have health issues. You're going to tell someone you know, like, and trust. So that's a big thing for me. You know, that's
That's good
it's
stuff.
a people business.
It is.
When you're out here, and I always, tell people, and me and Travis talked a lot about it. And when we first got together, I would talk to him about it as well, is that the first thing that people give you as a reason for selling is not really the reason for selling.
Hmm.
Okay. It's not really. Well, we
Hmm.
just want to sell, the house needs what we need to sell. But when you develop a relationship and you get deeper and they trust you more, then they say, well, at some point, well, my daughter's getting married and I want to try to help them buy a house and I want to do, and I want to sell this and I want to buy, or maybe there's some kind of something's happened in their lives, like we talked about live event marketing, but that's the first thing you get is not normally the real driving force behind it. So to really be effective in this business, you got to get past that superficial, you know,
The
whatever it
surface
is. I
layer.
just want to sell it fast.
Yeah. They got that surface layer, everything, the objections,
Hmm.
everything. That's why it's important, like what Eric said before, like, you were talking about your first calls and how, oh, well, here's the offer. Okay, bye. The success comes when you don't say, okay, bye, and you keep going. Okay, now that
Yeah.
it's over, Mr. Seller, and I know that you don't want to do this. Well, what's next? What are you going to do
Hmm.
now? And continue. That's awesome, man. This is gold. I hope you guys are getting a lot out of this because I am. This is a good reminder. That's why I like doing it.
Yeah.
It does a
Yeah.
lot for
No.
all of us.
Exactly. I mean, because so like, and here's one of my things is like and I'll use this as an example. About 3 4 years ago, I was about 315 pounds, and so I said, you know what? I want to change my life. I want to get healthy, so I started going to the gym. And one of the things that I realized as I was going to the gym was I started noticing the regular people that are at the gym every day, right? And so when I was looking at the people that were there every day, those were the people that I was asking questions to. Like, those were the people that I wanted to find out more about, like, my diet, my training program, and just health in general. Why? Because I want to learn from people that are actually doing it. And the gym is easier to spot someone that's doing it versus like what you see online. And I don't learn from people who don't actually do the business. Like, if you're not actually on the phone, dialing, talking to sellers, putting in offers, being the transaction coordinator, being the dispo manager, like, if you're not in here like actively wearing the hats, I know for a fact you're going to sell me a service, you're going to sell me a product, or you're going to sell me a membership. And so people that are not in the business don't really talk from experience. I think that's why I like Travis a lot. When we first started talking, was like, you were talking from experience. You were talking about, like, things you've actually done in the business versus, like, you see someone on the YouTube gurus, and it was like, hey, I'm going to tell you how to get your first deal in 30 days. You call this list. But like, you have to step back and think and say, wait a minute, if this video has like 10,000 views, right? And this guy's giving out this free list with, let's say another 10,000 people calling the same list. And if I get that list and I call the first person, I don't know how many times that person's been called, but I guarantee you, if I call that first person and they get on the phone and the following words is, will you people stop calling me? I know who he dealt with the whole time, and he was dealing with people that didn't care. So anybody that's new, like, you have to learn from people that's actually doing this business, not from the aspect of, like, oh my gosh, I closed a $30,000 deal. Let me show you how to do it. Everybody's posting that. Nobody's talking about the deals that fall out. Like, nobody's talking about, like, the deals that don't go through. And I think that's the aspect of, like, the realness of real estate investing that needs to be shown, because I had a deal that was supposed to close earlier this month that got canceled.
Yeah, it happens.
Like,
I know a guy that started real estate and he made $30,000 on one deal. And guess what happened after that one deal? Nothing.
nothing. That
That was it.
that
That was it. That was his career in wholesaling. Isn't that crazy? That's how hard it
yeah.
is. He got lucky that first deal. He got really lucky.
Hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's one thing I tell people too is like, if you get your first deal in your first couple of months, you got lucky. But don't think like that is how it's going to be every single month. You need to step back, like I know like 30,000 is like great, like you could change, you could change your life like instantly, but like 30,000 one time, that's not good. Yeah, as my business partner used to say, he said, you want to be in business for a long time or one time? So it
Yeah.
takes a little bit of investing on that end too, being reinvesting back into your business, just some of the things you actually need.
No, I think that's important too. I mean, that's you talked about the deal breakdowns that I do there on, and so I like to do those uh, to give social proof that we're
Hmm.
actually doing deals. And I show the dates and the times, that we're in this business every day. So it's a good place to try to learn when you're dealing with people. And so I've got one sitting here that I'm going to do now where, let me see, we lost $579 after 5 or 6 months. So I'm going to start posting ones that we didn't make money on as well, so people can kind of,
Hmm.
everybody in our groups can kind of see, you know, that is a reality of this business sometimes is we don't really make, now we don't lose a lot now, but every now and then we'll do one and things just don't work out the way we thought it would. So be
Exactly.
it. We move on to
Exactly.
the next one.
Yeah, and that was one of the business experiences I had to learn when I had my notary business, is because I remember one month I think it was like 11 or 12 thousand dollars in one month, and it was just a busy month. Like I was busy like days on end, and I was just like, oh my gosh, this is it. We made it. It's time to start buying my rental property out in Bora Bora. Here we go. And next month I made $1,500. So it's like that reality, but you're not going to see that reality of the business because everybody's going to be like, hey, last month I made 12,000. See, here's our proof. I'm like, okay, cool. Could you show me what March looked like? Like, yeah, February was nice, but could you show me how's March looking? That's the realness to the industry that needs to be shown. Because
Yeah.
it's each situation is different. Like,
Mhm. Yeah. I call it the video poker effect. Um, in West Virginia, we have video poker machines. I don't know if you have them in the states that you live in, but have you ever talked to anybody that played the video poker machines that is losing? They're always up.
no.
So you want? I'm up. I'm up 1,200. I'm up to 12,000. I'm like, wow, the state is going broke on this video poker because everybody's winning. So it's
Every
yeah.
exactly. Everybody's winning.
My sister lives in Las Vegas, and when I first started going out there, she said, well, Las Vegas is not built on winners. I said, well,
Mm,
you're exactly right.
wow.
So, but
Wow,
anyway,
that's deep.
yeah, that's deep for sure. But so yeah, um, uh, let's talk about this. So starting out, we got a lot of newbies, a lot of people that's new in the business, and then they're kind of looking just to try to get that first deal, man. They're hungry and they want to make a change in their life, and they're tired of delivering pizza or doing whatever task that they're doing, and they need that
Mhm.
break. So, what advice would you give someone day one? Where do they start? Where did you start? Where did you start calling leads? What was it? Did you use bandit sign? Tell us, go back to day one and tell us how you started and what would you
I
do
s-
today?
I would say day one. So I kind of do things in a couple of phases. So phase one was research and development phase, where I would learn everything I can about real estate investing. And I say real estate investing because I don't want to say wholesaling. And here's why. Um, Kind of look at it like this, just kind of give you like a visual. Imagine you go up to a construction site, right? And we know that the construction workers are construction workers, right? You're not going to go to a construction site and a guy, you say, "Hey, are you a construction worker?" He's not going to look at you and say, "Oh, no, I'm the screwdriver man." And the other guy's like, "Yeah, I'm the hammer guy." No, they have multiple tools to finish that job. So when you say that, I'm a real estate wholesaler, like that's the equivalent of just saying, "I'm the hammer guy in the construction zone." So every deal is not going to be a wholesale deal. Now you can wholesale a sub to seller finance, but not every deal is going to be just a clear cut wholesale deal. So day one, education, learning what you can about just the investment space, learning about creative financing, and not learn it to the point where you have it all down packed, right? But learning it so you are aware that it exists. So when you come across something that doesn't fit in your criteria of a wholesale deal, right? If the numbers are too tight for a wholesale deal, you said, "Oh, you know what? I remember I heard this thing about creative financing. Let me deep dive and laser in on creative financing." So that's the first thing, education. Then the second step, put into practice. Get on the phone. Call leads. Where do you call? And this is just a classic. The classic answer we see in all groups. Where do I get my leads? How do I get leads to call? There's things like PropStream, PropWire. You can pull leads from. You could cold call those leads. You have them skip trace and cold call, remove them from the DMC. I believe PropWire does that. I'm not 100% sure. But that's another way you could do it, or even just Zillow. Zillow is just a good practice point. I would say remove the idea or the aspect of getting a deal in the next 30 days. I mean, I know that's not YouTube clickbait there, but I'm gonna be honest with you. I would remove that idea of getting a deal in the 30 days. Now you'll see people do that, but just like as Travis said, a guy made 30,000 and then nothing. So imagine like getting a $30,000 check and spreading that off across the whole year. Like that, you have to do something different. So the practice, that's what it is, the practice. And the biggest practice is getting on the phone, putting in offers. And if you're not getting to the point where you're putting in offers with anybody on the phone, which is fine, do what I did. Call a realtor. "Hey, my name is Steve. I'm a real estate investor. Saw this house on 123 Apple Street. I thought about putting a verbal offer in at, 275. Well, the property is worth like 400. They're going to tell you no, but you want to get used to hearing that no, because you trust me, trust me. I get no's a lot, but I don't try to allow those no's to stop me from keep moving forward. And it's all about repetition. That's what it is. So day one, I would say this. I would say month one, education. Month two, start calling some leads. I mean, Zillow, anything you can. If you have the ability to save up some money, I would save up some money to, purchase, a better quality list, purchase better quality data. You might have, some money to have a cold caller to make these cold calls for you, kind of leverage your W-2 job in order to invest into your business. Because if you get the ball rolling and stay consistent, it's going to happen. I think Denzel Washington has a quote. He said, if you hang around the barbershop long enough, you're going to get your hair cut. Well, you just got to hang around the barbershop long enough to do so. So that's where I would say I would start, point blank. It's not glamorous. Like, let's be honest. It's not a glamorous start. But it's the realest, most solid foundation, you can do. And then critique yourself if you can. And if you can record your calls, record your calls, listen to it, practice with friends, family, whoever, just kind of going through the motions. There's different scripts out there. I'm not a big script guy. I just like to have things outlined in general, but learn how to interject that next question. The question might be, the condition of ask the seller about the condition of the property. Put it in your words. Like I say all the time, I say, hey, so let me ask you this. If you had like $20,000, what would be the first updates you would do to the property? Oh, I'll do the bathroom, and I need to do this, and the lighting fixtures, and this. Like, you're asking questions that put people at ease. So that's what I would recommend starting out, and then just build from there. And then once you start creating that momentum, you're gonna get a yes. And then then the unfortunate part about that is, you take one hat off and you put on another. Because I wish I could tell you guys, they say yes, you sign the contract, you send it in, boom, $10,000 is in your account. But that's not the case, because you're working the marketing aspect. That's the first half. The second half, when you're talking to sellers and negotiating, that's your acquisitions part. But then after you get that contract when you get that under contract, you're wearing two hats at this point, because now you're the dispositions manager and the transaction coordinator. You're keeping everybody in the loop, and that's why the follow-up has to be a good thing. So, and then from there, it gets to the finish line and everything's clear. So yeah, that's what I would recommend starting out. That's what I did when I first started out.
That's good
I mean, I would
recommendation.
call.
That's what
I,
that's very good. I would say the only, like, if you're getting started and you don't, before you spend any money, what I would do to practice. Now, I don't know how many deals you're going to do like this. I think there's deals out there like this, but consistently, I don't know. I've never done this method. But the best practice for you, instead of cold calling a strange list, is like Eric said, realtors or Zillow for sale by owners. Because those are going
Mhm.
to get you a lot of no's. If you want to get used to hearing no, that's how you do it. Like Eric said, agents and for sale by owners on Zillow. Because usually most of those, not all of them, but usually most for sale by owners on Zillow, they're in La La Land. That's why they're not listed with a realtor. They want a lot
Yep.
of money.
Can I share you one of my favorite stories about calling about something off of Zillow? So I was looking at, and then I'll just throw this out as well, is like the beautiful thing about calling leads off of Zillow, like you can do anywhere. The only states I wouldn't do is Illinois, South Carolina, because you can't wholesale in South Carolina. I think there's a couple more that has a little bit of a weird wholesaling law around it, but everywhere else, like let's say you're working late, you don't get home till like 8 o'clock at night. Well, you're not going to call anybody on the East Coast, but the West Coast is wide open, so you can get on there and start calling people there. Like, use your job to its advantage. When I was doing it, I was just calling people like all over. But my favorite one is, I was calling this house out in Nashville. And so it was listed with the realtor. The numbers looked nice, but they were asking, I mean, way too much for its location. But the location was good. So it was like a double-edged sword. So called the realtor, and he answers the phone. I say, hey, my name is Eric. I'm calling about 123 Apple Street. I'm an investor. Just kind of looking at this property, wanted to find out some more information and want to put an offer in. So he's like, yeah, he's giving me the rundown about the property. And here comes like where you slam on the brakes. This is where a lot of people slam on the brakes. The guy goes, are you a wholesaler? Just flat out. Just flat out. Like, not like, hey, let me ask you a question. So he's like, yeah, the basement's done. And he goes, oh, wait a minute. Are you a wholesaler? And so like, I felt so good because I'm rocking these questions. I'm responding. And then he asked me that. And so I said, oh my gosh, what do I say? Right? Because some people say, well, don't tell them you do it. And then other people say, well, tell them you do it, but you don't really do it. My philosophy is I don't like to be lied to, so I'm not going to lie to you. So I told him, I say, you know what? I'm gonna be honest with you. Yes, I'm looking to wholesale this. And he goes, sorry, I don't work with wholesalers. Now, this is the big takeaway. You ready? Here's my response to that. I did not say, okay, thank you, have a wonderful day. I did not say, well, I asked him one question. I said, how come? I asked him, so why don't you work with wholesalers? And what he said next helped me to work on the deal. That's what he said next. He said, because a lot of you, and you guys are going to hear this a lot, like to my beginners, I just want you to know, like, if you don't have thick skin, I'm going to let you know it's okay to get off the phone, set it down, cry for 10 or 15 minutes, get yourself back together, and jump back on the phone. It's like riding a bike. You skin your knee, you cry, you get back on it the next day. But I asked him, I said, well, why not? And he said, well, because a lot of you will lock up properties, put them under contract, and don't perform. And I'm tired of it. The seller's tired of it. Matter of fact, and so he starts going into a rant, right? Just a frustration rant. And so he's just like, I'm tired of it. I'm tired of this. I'm tired of dealing with these properties. Like the seller's being unreasonable, like all the, and he's just, I've struck oil, right? When you get someone and they just spewing everything out, like you need to take notes lightning fast because they're telling you the whole story without telling you the whole story. So he's just going on and on and on, and I'm just listening. And I said, well, it sounds like you don't want to work with a wholesaler or an investor. I just want to let you know that wholesaling is one of my strategies, but I also use other strategies as well. So if you want to work something out in the future, or you have anything else we could work on, I can do it. I have cash buyers in the area, and I can send you a list of some of their projects that they've done just to prove that they've done work. And he said, well, I got a call on the other line. I'll think about it. He hangs up the phone. Cool, no big deal. Um, that question kind of threw me through a loop because I was just starting out trying to figure out, like, okay, did I say the right thing? Should I have told him that I wasn't a wholesaler? Like, you playing that game. And this is the next day. Next day, he calls me back. And so I'm like, yeah. He said, hey, is this the guy that called me yesterday? And I was like, yeah, it is. This is Eric. And he said, how serious are your cash buyers? I said, oh no, they're pretty serious. And he goes, I tell you what, you get on the phone with your buyers. I'll send you every picture I have of this property. I'll even give them the lockbox code. You let me know what's a good price for them. I said, okay, deal. Listen, I hung up that phone and I got on the next line with my cash buyer instantly. And we start talking. I sent him everything. And again, this is about the relationship part because I said, listen, here's the property. This is what I want to make from this. Where can we be at? He's crunching the numbers. He's doing everything. He gets back to me. I get my numbers. I subtract my wholesaling fee and everything. Get on the phone, talk to the realtor. I say, hey, listen, this is where we need to be at. We could do a 15-day inspection period, quick close, all the fancy bells and whistles and everything like that. He said, okay, I'll put it in with them and let them know. Put the offer in with them, put in a verbal. They countered back. We countered back. We were looking good. And then they decided to cancel and wait a little bit longer. So when the guy called me, he said, hey, listen, he said, first of all, I want to say thank you for, the time and effort you put into trying to make this deal work, but these people are not budging off this number whatsoever. He's like, I'm not sure, like we're showing them like what the market is doing and they're not listening. And so it's been frustrating. I've been dealing with these people for like 6 months now, trying to get some sort of reduction. They don't want to reduce. He said, but I want to say thank you because you put in the time to prove to me that you can actually pull something. He said, so if I get anything in the future, I'll let you know and I'll reach back out to you. I said, perfect. And that one there was all just a Zillow. It was It was listed as for sale by realtor. That's all it was. I mean, that's all it was. And I liked that conversation. That conversation sticks out to me the most just because when he said why he doesn't work with wholesalers, it made me realize that there's a lot of people that don't take action. And when you realize that there's a lot of people that don't take action, it's easy to win. Like, that's it. And that's where I can stand out from everybody else, is that I perform, you know, like we perform, like guarantee we perform. Like well, like when I'm talking to sellers, when I'm renegotiating, we're in negotiations. Tell me what you need. This is what we're doing here. We're negotiating this. So we both walk away happy. This is not about all about me, and this isn't all about you. This is about us and what the solution we bring. So I'm telling you, calling those Zillows, those Redfins, and I forget the Realtor.com ones. Like, don't just look at it as the potential of getting a deal. Look at it as the potential of getting a relationship that's going to continuously bring you more deals. Because if you can nurture those small relationships, then you can nurture like bigger relationships with lenders that can give you access to funds, north of $17 million if you needed it. Like this is the most important part about real estate is these relationships. So
Yeah.
get on the phone, start calling. Like if you see me anytime on Facebook, someone asks me, "Oh, I've been here on Facebook. I've been doing this for a couple of months, and nothing has happened." I always say, "How many calls are you making a day? How many offers are you putting in?" Because there's no excuse to not put 5 offers in a day. Like I'm going to hang up. If we get off of this, I'm going to get off of here, and I'm going to just look on Zillow, see what's been sitting the longest, and I'm going to call them, put an offer, and
Yeah,
they're
you
going to
got to
counter
give
back.
those offers every day. And then, over time, like, don't get me wrong, we got to go here in a second, but follow up is so crucial, right? Like, everybody knows that. And we know we have to follow up, and we go into these calls knowing this might not be a deal, but I think it's very important that we walk into this conversation with people with the intent to get a deal in mind still. Even though in our back of our
Hmm.
head we know we're going to have to follow up, I think it's important for them to see our urgency as well. Not that we're pushy, but that, hey, we're looking to buy a house today. It's okay if you don't want to sell today, but like this is
Hmm.
what we're looking to do, and not always make it a follow up. Like it's okay to follow up, but sometimes people need to know like we might not always be available all the time. Like this offer's good now. Me and David talk about that scarcity, how like it's a
Hmm.
it's a it's a natural human response, and it works when it's genuine. Again, you have to be genuine and you have to let people know that. But yeah, this has been good, guys. We appreciate you. It's time is about out now. I know before we go, I appreciate you, Erica. This was good, man. Like
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
love the
definitely.
energy you bring. I love the way you approach things, how genuine you are and upfront with people. That's why I like you and why I wanted to have you come be a guest. So I hope to have you come back. I know
Yeah,
David, before we go, he wants to say a few things, a few announcements, and then just tell everybody bye.
Eric, thanks, man. It's been really good, and I like that what you talked about the education. If I could give one more piece of advice, you learn wholesaling, and something that goes along side by side with wholesaling is you need to learn a little bit about creative finance. You need to learn about installment land contracts, lease with options, sub two. You need to understand that because it runs congruently with wholesaling. It might not be a wholesale deal, but it may be a perfect rental deal, owner finance deal. They own it free and clear. You look at Rent-A-Meter, and they're currently renting it for $950 a month, but it could be renting for $1,600 a month, or So there's a lot of things in that creative side that can create a lot of income for you outside of just a straight wholesale deal. So that's all I want to say on that. So learn creative finance. First of all, we got some special announcements, and this was a big one. We're going to do a year's free deal machine to someone in our group. Travis, go ahead and kind of give the details of it real quick.
Okay. Yeah. This was something that I was on a Deal Machine podcast. I got invited on the Deal Machine podcast today, and I was talking to David and Ryan, the guys over at Deal Machine. I got really excited, and I was like, "Well, we're going to do a free giveaway for a year, Deal Machine," and so now we're doing it. But Deal Machine's gonna, they're gonna partner with us on it. So June 1st, someone in our community, we're gonna on June 1st we're gonna go live, and we're gonna do one of those spinning wheels, and and we're just going to give it away. So for 1 year, somebody, a lucky member, is going to have Deal Machine and all the skip tracing and everything that's provided with it.
It's good stuff. So
Great.
what do they need to do to enter?
They just need to join the group. Make sure they're a member of the Facebook group.
Okay. Secondly, for those of you that don't know, we have a school group, and we have we have a lot of content in there now, and we're offering micro credentials. So you can go in there and get a micro credential in rentals, wholesaling. We're working on a creative finance, and so there's a lot of good information in there, and there's hours and hours and hours worth of videos. It's a free group right now, so you can go over to our school group. It's Small Market REI on school, and you can take advantage of that content, get a certificate, your micro credentials. We're also going to introduce at a later date a paid tier, and that'll be a lot more in-depth type stuff. And instead of the introductory type stuff, we're going to kind of get in the weeds on creative finance and wholesaling, rentals, flips. So be a lot of really, really great content. So we'd like to ask you to go over and join our school group. Like I say, it's free right now, and we'll continue to have a free tier, but we will have a paid tier somewhere in the future. So outside of that, on behalf of Eric Williams and Travis, I'm Coach. Remember,